Without further ado, let's get into it. We've been waiting for this moment. Keir Starmer and President Macron. Finally, we get some details about this deal. Let's take a listen.
So I'm pleased to announce our agreement today on a groundbreaking returns pilot. For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks, and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain.
Mike Goodwin, you were laughing during that clip. What's so funny about what he says? Is it not the groundbreaking solution that we've all been promised?
I'm laughing at Keir Starmer, but I'm actually crying inside for the British people, because this is not going to come close to solving our border crisis at all. What we've got here is basically an exchange programme for illegal migrants. One in, one out. That's not what the British people want. What they want are the estimated 1.2 million illegal migrants and anybody else who arrives illegally by boat removed from the country. They don't want to then have to accept other asylum seekers in exchange for removing lawbreakers from their country. Do you know how many illegal migrants who have arrived in the small boats? This plan is estimated to remove from the country just 1.5% of all illegal migrants who have arrived in Britain via the small boats. 1.5%. And the other thing, no one else has pointed this out, Michelle. I predict on this show this is what's going to happen, because what Keir Starmer and Macron have just done is they've just created another major pull factor for migrants across Northern Africa and the Middle East to head to France in the hope that human rights lawyers and others can establish some kind of tenuous link to the UK and that they will be brought into the UK in exchange for one of these illegal migrants. This is not going to work. We need to get tough. Leave the ECHR, reform the Human Rights Act, create an active deterrent, offshore processing, detain and deport. This plan is not going to do that.
Bastani, are you a bit more of a fan of it?
I'm not a fan of it. I suppose what Keir Starmer and Labour would say is it creates something of a disincentive. Obviously, you got rid of that with Rwanda, although I think the 1,000 places in Rwanda wouldn't have been sufficient to create a disincentive. But we'll park that. We will disagree there, Matt and I. But clearly, when you're talking such tiny numbers, I don't see how it could be a disincentive. As Matt said, it's 1.5% potentially of all the people making that crossing. So I don't really understand sort of political thinking here. What Starmer's done with this policy is it's almost better to do nothing at all than do something, add to an issue's policy salience, say, I really care about this, you should be upset, we're doing something about it, and then subsequently offering a proposal which is nonsensical and frankly won't really scratch the sides. This is classic Keir Starmer. He says something, offering it as a solution, actually, it ends up angering a lot of people.
And the one thing, just to add to that, because this is really important, it is angering people for good reason, because this crisis, don't forget, Michelle, is costing taxpayers out there who are watching this show between 7 and 10 billion pounds every year. Just think about all that money that we could spend on hospitals, on schools, on public services. And Keir Starmer is standing up there today. He's gaslighting the country. We don't want one in, one out, shake it all about. We want everybody who has arrived here illegally, removed from the country, and we don't have to take other people in exchange for that. We're a sovereign nation. We are in control of our borders, apparently. We don't need to do a one-in, one-out illegal migration exchange scheme.
But we're evidently not in control of our borders, are we? I mean, all these people that state this, I mean, you might as well, if you are the boss of Heathrow Airport and you're not asleep, if you're awake at this point, I wonder if you sit there and you think to yourself, I spent all this money in terms of border security at the airports and all the rest of it. What's the point? What is the point in manning your border in the likes of places like airports if simultaneously you've got this border here that you might as well just not bother with? Because so many people listening to this will be feeling, you've just been echoing this point. It's not 1 in, 1 out. It's something like 17 in, 1 out. I think we're talking about numbers of about 50 a week. And I don't know if anyone saw the clip of Nigel Farage. I'll play it to you in a second. They were looking at volumes of people coming in. I mean, you've got more than 50 people on one boat. Ladies and gents, it is so infuriating.
I think Nigel said it best today when he said it's a humiliation. This is humiliating for our country to be reduced to this. It's a humiliation.
Let's listen to Nigel from earlier on, shall we?
Quite extraordinary. We have Hurricane here, the Border Force vessel, the migrant dinghy alongside. They're beginning to offload. You can see people getting on the back of it now. French naval vessel behind, 1 French naval rib, 2 Border Force ribs, and right behind another huge boat that's been employed. You can just see it now behind Border Force, and that boat is employed just to pick up the empty dinghies. The sheer amount of kit, the cost is incredible, but I've seen something today I've never seen. So this dinghy that was being escorted by the French Navy gave them 40 life jackets. There were obviously people on board without life jackets, and now, would you believe, the French Navy have collected the life jackets back.
Well, that's Nigel Farage, of course, the leader of Reform UK. Well, I would actually believe that, Nigel Farage, because it has just become... I mean, it's not laughable, it's deeply serious, and it has real-world consequences for many people, actually, in their lives. Their high streets, their communities, where they live are being changed beyond recognition at the moment. But this whole thing that Nigel Farage has pointed out there, Aaron, about, you've got this, here's your 40 life jackets, I'll take my 40 life jackets back. This has just become such a slick operation, it feels, from start to finish. So many people, so many moving parts involved in all of this now. You've got the likes of TikTok acting as some kind of, semi-travel agent when it comes to actually demonstrating and showing content that would inspire some of this stuff. I'm sure if TikTok was here, they would deny that, but everyone's got eyes and ears that work. I mean, what do we even say about this?
Well, I suspect Nigel Farage is likely to be this country's Prime Minister in the next 5 to 10 years. Seems increasingly plausible. The challenge is not talking, it's doing, and executing change on the kind of scale that people are talking about here, or the sort of task that Matt was saying, having 0 illegal migration to the country, or close to 0, is going to be incredibly tough. And he mentioned ECHR, Supreme Court, etc. But I think the apparatus around this is huge. And there are, you might say, pull factors, there are also push factors too. And it's something I talk about a lot with push factors. It's not the whole story, but it's some of the story. And I don't think we're even at the start of this. If climate change, and I know some people on GB News aren't fans of this debate, but if climate change is as bad as we think it is, 3 degrees warming over the next 50 to 60 years, there is going to be massive displacement and movement of hundreds of millions of people. And as a society in this country and more globally, we now need to have this debate. We can't just sort of ease into this very different world of...
Come off it. They're not coming here because they're too hot wherever they are.
Well, increasingly they will, though.
Yeah, but irrespective of why they're coming, you're right, but we don't need the debate. I think we're past the debate. What we need is a full reset, and that means the institutional Blairite architecture that surrounds this country, which has allowed our borders to become a joke. I would argue, and I think Nigel Farage would argue, and I think Reform would argue, needs to be completely removed and changed. We leave the ECHR, we reform the Human Rights Act, we have offshore processing. We don't put these guys, we don't know where they're from, we don't know what they believe, we know they've included alleged terrorists, we know they've included murderers and rapists, we're putting them in the heart of communities next to British people and their kids. It's outrageous.
Where would you
I'd process them offshore. Process them offshore.
Where? Because the Scots don't want it in Scotland.
But the point being...
I'm just asking, because this is a very real debate now, right?
So what I would look at things like...
Well, hold on, just hold that thought, because I want to explore this properly rather than just in a 10-second nub. So let's do this properly after the break. Right, let's get to the chase then. Are there any answers to this that can actually resolve this mess we found ourselves in, Matt Goodwin?
Yeah, so Keir Starmer said Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan was a gimmick. What we're seeing today is the ultimate gimmick. It's a 1 in, 1 out scheme. It's not going to deal with the issue. If you really want to solve the small boat crisis, and I've been saying this for years, we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. That allows us to deport foreign criminals, but more importantly, it allows us to stop these illegal migrants and asylum seekers using Article 3 and Article 8 to stop their removal from the country.
Right, so what's the trade-off to that? What's the trade-off? What's the downside of doing that?
Well, I'll tell you in a second. Well, there are no downsides. People will tell you, oh, this clashes with the Good Friday Agreement. That's nonsense. We can deal with the Good Friday Agreement through domestic legislation. They say, oh, Winston Churchill was up for the ECHR. That's nonsense. No one who signed up to the original ECHR, including Clement Attlee on the left, would have ever signed up to something that gave away this degree of judicial sovereignty. So if you want to fix this crisis, leave the ECHR, reform Tony Blair's Human Rights Act, which enshrines the ECHR into domestic law, strip welfare for anybody who gets into the country, which even Emmanuel Macron has said we become El Dorado for illegal migrants, have offshore processing like Rwanda, in Rwanda, Ascension Island, but where lawyers cannot any longer use the ECHR to stop those claims. If you do all of that, I guarantee you, we will stop the small boats. The moment that is done, no one will come because we will not be soft-touch Britain. And the lawyers will not be able to mobilise the ECHR for individual claims to stop these people being deported.
Do you share that sentiment, Aaron Bastani?
I think it's just going to be bigger than that. I mean, I saw an amazing video, I'm sure some of your audience watched it as well over the weekend, where there was a young man from the Horn of Africa, I think maybe Ethiopian or Somali, and he was asked, why are you going to Britain? He was in France. Why are you going to Britain? He said, I want to play for Liverpool. I want to go to Britain. I know it sounds ridiculous. I want to play for Liverpool. And I do think the cultural pull, and that's a legacy of this being a very successful country for hundreds of years, I do think the cultural pull of the UK is really, really strong. Understand it or not, agree with it or not. And I think even if you do all those things, I still think we would see large numbers of people coming over. Not to the extent we're seeing right now, but my concern would be if I was a reform strategist, you do all that, and even if you've got 1/3 of what you presently have, it's still visible. I think people will get very angry very quickly.
But it would be fundamentally different, Aaron, because if they were still coming over on the small boats, and I agree, people will always try their luck. The difference, if you do everything I just said, the difference is they are immediately detained and deported. They're not put in a house for multiple occupants in Bolton with 20 and 30 young guys living next to a British family, guys from Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq. They are immediately removed from the country. Legally, you then have the system that allows you to do that. They don't go anywhere near the British people. The moment the TikTok videos start coming out with these guys saying, hey, I'm in Rwanda, or hey, I'm on Ascension Island, or hey, I can't get into the UK because now they're deporting me somewhere else, these flows will stop. And there'll be guys in Somalia saying, I'd like to play for Liverpool FC. Well, then go and play for your local Somali team and work your way up the football leagues. Don't enter Britain illegally. This is getting serious, Michelle, because the numbers are getting so big. And the exasperation in this country is so bigger than I think even Westminster understands today. I think Nigel Farage was right today when he said the anger in this country is a lot more intense than Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch and the establishment.
The anger has
really
been
understand.
there. I mean, I've spoken to you guys at home for years now, and I do try my best to look at all of the emails and stuff like that you send me. The anger has been palpable for a very long time. How difficult can it be to slash these small boats? I mean, when I say small boats, I almost feel embarrassed copying the lingo of calling them small boats. They're not small boats. These things are absolutely ginormous. They're not, you don't blink and then you've missed this thing taking off and departing. How is it so difficult to actually just damage these vessels before they even get into the water?
Well, that's what the French have started to do that.
Well, yeah, when there's a TV camera watching,
years after we've been giving them 500 million. Yeah, that's part of the problem. But to go back, if you don't remove the pull factors, we currently basically have a neon sign on the White Cliffs of Dover saying, come on in, we'll give you a cash card, a smartphone, private accommodation, healthcare. We'll give you asylum because
I don't think they get smartphones, do they? Provided by the state.
They get given a phone on arrival. And they get given cash cards.
A smartphone?
They get given a phone, and they get given a cash card, and they get seen by GP. And if they bring kids, they get a place in local school. And it's the Brits who are paying 15 billion over the next decade to do it. And beyond all of that, Labour, Keir Starmer, they're approving 60 to 80% of all asylum claims. So that means they stay in the country. And if they stay here for 5 years, will be moved to 10 years, they'll stay here forever. That's why they're coming. Yeah, culture's part of the problem. But the bigger problem is we've got a massive open goal on our border and nobody in Westminster can be bothered to close it. I think Nigel Farage will close it. I think Reform will close it. I think that's why they're leading in the national polls. But Keir Starmer, I mean, today he's gaslighting the country. One in, one out. How is that solving this issue? I don't get it. Does he think people are going to fall for this?
Do you think that people on the left of the political spectrum understand the levels of anger about this issue?
I think so. I think, well, not everybody, but I think many people. I think anybody with eyes and ears understands the country is a tinderbox for a range of reasons, including this. And I think at the heart of it is a perceived unfairness, whether or not you're pro or anti-migration.
But it's not a perceived unfairness, is it?
Well,
it's an actual unfairness.
No, but I'm talking about in terms of the people that are angry with it, they perceive it. Whether or not somebody else agrees with them or not, they perceive it as unfair. Therefore, for them, it is unfair. That goes to the heart of it. So I think that anybody who's remotely pragmatic or sensible right now in the media or politics understands full well this country is a tinderbox. And I think you add to that the disappointment of a Labour government in its first 12 months, which has just defied all expectations in terms of how bad it is. And yeah, of course, we're in a very bad place as a country. I want Matt, you, me, we all want Britain to do really well. We all want to succeed. On this or that policy, we're going to disagree, totally. We want it to do really, really well. Right now, people are very angry, people want answers, and they certainly don't think that political class is the place where that's going to come from. And my worry is, just because I did ask earlier on about where's the processing centre going to be, etc., if reform come in, Nigel Farage is PM, let's say you half it, which is still a huge thing, people are going to be even more angry because they've had promises, they've put their faith in something to address an issue which they think is really important, and then it's not fully addressed. That to me is actually as concerning as anything else, because I don't think anger compounds anger.
I don't think that's true. Take Trump too. Trump's come in and he said, look, here's my plan for the borders. And what's happened? Crossings have fallen 90% into the US from Mexico. He's delivered on that. Now, people in America aren't saying, well, there's still 10% coming over, we're furious with Donald Trump. What they can see is a guy taking on the blob. And I think what will happen here, if the polls are right, if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister, leader of the largest party, reformer in government, I genuinely think if the Brits out there will see that government taking on the ECHR, taking on the Human Rights Act, taking on the human rights lawyers, taking on the blob, standing up to this broken regime, I think the Brits will say, you know what, this is exactly what we voted for. We want some people in this country who are going to stand up against this system. And I think they will be a little bit patient while that reset kicks in. I really do think that will be the case.
What do you think about this notion then? I played you, or you mentioned actually a tweet from Nigel Farage earlier on about this deal was a humiliation for Brexit Britain. And I'm just looking at social media, I'm looking at some of the reactions that you guys at home are giving to me as well. There's a sense that we've essentially been done over by France in lots of ways. We've given this country hundreds of millions of pounds. We've got, not much. I was going to talk like I was in a pub in Hull then for a moment, but we've not got much, I'll speak politely, we've not got much in return for that money. And there is a sense that actually we've just been laughed at. Is that fair or is that harsh?
I think that's entirely accurate. And I think Macron said it himself today, where he is de facto blaming Britain for leaving the European Union. He links this deal in his press conference with Starmer to Brexit. And there are people within the European Union who cannot accept we want to be a sovereign, self-governing nation with control over our borders. Why should we take asylum seekers from France? Why should we be working with European Union member states? We're a sovereign nation in our own right. We should be able to control our own borders. We shouldn't. And also, who's going to be processing the asylum seekers in France, the legitimate ones that we're going to take? I put money, it's going to be the French. Well, why are we having to subordinate to the French? Are we going to establish a processing centre in France? Is that what we're going to do now? No one's explained this to the British people. Who decides who's legitimate and who isn't? And how many human rights lawyers are going to be all over this going, well, this chap from Somalia has a great uncle who happened to once upon a time have a connection to the UK, so he should be a legitimate asylum seeker. Who decides that? Is that the French? I don't want the French deciding our immigration policy. I want Britain deciding our immigration policy.
I think the short version is, ladies and gents, and tell me if you disagree with this at home, because I'm looking at comments coming in, I'm listening to the panel. I don't really feel like many people have listened to the outcome of this summit with Macron and you feel uplifted, optimistic and positive that actually you're going to get anywhere closer to a resolution on this small boats issue. If you do have that view and that sentiment, I'd love to hear that perspective. Get in touch and tell me. But so many of you getting in touch, you don't feel optimistic. You actually feel very deflated and angry indeed.